Welcome to the 13th episode of Season 4 of the Land podcast. Today we have a special guest, the one and only Jorge. And just as a reminder, this is your favorite host, Morpheus. All right.
Introduce yourself, Jorge.
Yeah, all right. My name is Jorge Beanish, and I used to work in Facility 7, and I was a botanist. I had a friend named Candace, but she's still fighting to change how things worked at Beanland.
Oh, can you tell us who Candace is?
Yeah, Candace was my best friend. She was a part of the leaders of 7, and she wanted to abolish the nations. You know what? I'm gonna start from the beginning.
Go ahead, we're listening.
Right. So I lived in the opposite nation, Beanland. Well, you guys probably know it's our neighbors. Well, before we all started being me for being a racist, being a part of Beanland, I'll tell you that I wasn't a part of the top. I was a botanist, and I wasn't treated very well by the others. I was near the very bottom, and no one would ever talk to me. So one day I met Candace. She was the nicest, sweetest person I ever met. Being higher up the ranks at Facility 7, she would bring me cheese bread and was the only person who ever helped me when I needed assistance. Even when they had meetings, she would stay late after work so she could chat with me. She was the only friend I ever had. You
Wait,
see,
Jorge. Could
huh?
you explain how cheese brat looks?
Yeah. Cheese bread, it's kind of like it's like a flatbread with like cheese on top, So it's kind of like
Oh,
it's about like 2 feet. Yeah, and I would split it with Candace.
sounds appetizing.
Yeah, you see, so I was a botanist, right? And I was working for this prize. It's called the Nobel Prize. I don't know if you guys have it here, but in Beanland, this was the most prestigious prize one could lay their hands on. And, like at that point, I had an idea because I was very poor. Uh, so all I think day and night was that if I could have won that prize, I could escape poverty, right? So I was so confident. I even went and I even talked to Candace about it.
Okay, what happened that made you realize how unfairly you were being treated?
Right. So I was working for the Nobel Prize, right? Well, someday some guy came into my lab, where I worked, and stole my work. I even went to security and asked for this footage, but they refused. This is when I realized how much worse I was being treated than the others. I knew that I needed someone to help me if I wanted to seriously make a change. Therefore, I went to my friend Candace, the only person I talked to every day. We talked about the unfairness of Beanland and how corrupted it had become. Up until that point, I was oblivious of the outside world. Little did I know there was even another nation.
What was your first impression of Candace when you first met her?
Well, she was just well, I didn't really have many friends, if you know what I mean, but um, she was pretty much just like you know, someone I could just talk to. It was kind of like another another mother.
Oh, okay. Now back to the point. When did you decide that like Beanland was actually corrupted?
Well, it was the day after they had stolen my work. I was completely devastated for the next few days. I didn't even want to go to work, but I knew the consequences.
What were the consequences?
Well, in Beanland, the punishment for missing work was public shaming. The offender would be whipped in front of everyone they knew. Then again, this rule does not apply to the higher ups. All they do is sit around and enjoy their nice cup of tea.
Well,
So I went to yeah.
Jorge, does whipping occur like a lot or does it happen like once a year?
It's kind of like the thing. It differs from years. A couple years ago, it was snowing very badly. So like many people, they didn't want to go because it was negative 200 degrees, closer to that, closer to 300. Yeah. So many people just they couldn't make it. It was too cold for them, and well, yeah, that was a horrible year.
So a lot of do people usually die from the whippings?
No, just like severely crippled. Like practically unable to move.
Lashes?
Yeah, like
Okay.
using a nine tail whip. It's like
That's
it's
horrible.
yeah, it's a whip that spreads into nine different tails. It's very painful.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, so back to the story. I went back to work that day, and while I went to the washroom, someone had stolen my cheese bread. The second I could, I went to Candace and told her everything that had happened the previous day. That was the most important moment in my life. We vowed to each other that we would, and this is exactly what we said, no matter what, end this society. The next day, I managed to sneak into their offices. I used a formula that I developed myself that makes living things more vegetative. And vegetative is kind of like it's like you're pretty much a vegetable. That's what it is, right? So this way, they would look like they were asleep, breathing and sitting there like an actual human being. But in reality, they were no more living than a rock.
Oh, Jorge,
Yeah.
could you tell us how you make the formula? What's the exact formula that you use?
Oh well, if I told you, I would have to kill you.
Okay, continue with your story.
All right. It would take a couple days before they would notice. Uh, the first victim that I had killed was Joe. He was the easiest of the bunch. He had a routine to visit his grandmother at Segondia every Monday. I sneaked into his office, easy peasy, while he was away, through a vent from the floor, and placed the formula in his chalky milk. The next day, he was instantly knocked out. The following people died in the same fashion. Ben, Dover, Rydon, they stood no chance.
What happened after? What obstacles did you encounter?
Well, people started to realize, paid more attention. I still managed to pick off a couple of them. I think that was Bob, yeah, and I forgot the other one. But the other workers seemed giddy at what was happening. Of course, no one knew it was me, so I just pretended like I was excited too. There was this one scary part. One of the authorities spotted me reproducing my formula.
Was it necessary to like pick off the specific people you've named?
Well, I didn't really choose them, but they were kind of on, my red list. They were kind of the people who just annoyed me the most, or just got into my way. And in reality, they were just pretty much the people who I thought could have been the one to, steal my formulas and take my notes.
What happened after the authorities spotted you?
Well, right then, I'm pretty sure one of them called the others, and the officials just bust in and they wrestled me to the ground. They demanded that I hand over whatever I was doing, and I gave them my formula, and they let me go. I lied, and I just said I was, studying and try to improve on my Nobel Prize, try to get it. But they took me into protective custody.
Did they punish you afterwards?
Though I was sentenced, into prison. I was in there for what, 3 4 days. I lost track of time. It was just a pitch black room with bars all around. So it was kind of like picture this. It was like it's kind of like a cell, not that big, 2 meters by 4 meters. It was horrible. It was very moist. There was like cold water dripping around, and it was just absolutely horrible. I'm pretty sure it was like a mental asylum for crazy people or something.
Did you did they feed you during that time?
Oh, of course not. I just sat there and I had to drink the dripping cold water, and I almost went crazy. Well, luckily, at that moment, it was Candace to the rescue. She had found me and she got me out.
Did she like officially get you out, or did she like break you out of the jail?
Oh, of course, that was all, illegal, but hey, it's not like anyone's gonna know that now.
Now, fast forward. How did you get to Peatland?
Yeah, well, it was after I got out, right? So it was like the first couple times I had actually been able to walk around freely. Candace, she gave me uh, I think it was called a security badge or something like that. I don't know what that is, but I pretty much allowed me to walk around freely, right? So she told me a couple days ago prior to that, and it was called Pinland, I believe that's what it's called, right? So she told me the general direction. I just started to walk. It was oh boy, what was it? 40 kilometers. It was
Wait,
far.
wait. You walked to Peatland?
Yeah, I ventured long and hard, and when I finally made it, uh, the leaders of this society welcomed me with open arms. We talked about the long and back-breaking labor we went through, and the leaders understood.
Did Candace come with you, or did she stay behind at?
Unfortunately, not. I believe she's still in. Facility 7, but I plan on breaking her out too.
Well, wouldn't you say that's a bit illegal?
I mean, well, everything's illegal over there. Well, now that I really, can see the full picture, the whole thing, it's not good. And I want to change that. I don't feel like that place is a good place.
Now, how's your life coming along now that you got here to Pinland?
Well, now I've returned to being happy, I have many more friends. I talk to a lot more people, and best part, I can walk around and do whatever I want. I have a new botanist job in a greenhouse building called Sector 7G. I have a happy life now with new colleagues, friends. My rage has been suppressed now, and I have better people to support me.
Well, how's your life like compared to the life before? Do you like it a
It's
lot more?
so much better. It's 100 times better. It's just I get options, I can do whatever I want. Before, I had to follow. I do what they tell me to do. What the if I don't do it, it doesn't matter. I have to do it. And
Well,
before, yeah, I had to work what 7 days a week. I think, yeah, I know it was what 11 hours a day. It's just so many
oh
more
my
options here.
God.
Like, imagine this. I could choose not to be a botanist. Imagine how cool that would be.
Well, Jorge, now if you can have one thing to have with you right now, what would that be, or who would that be?
That would be Candace.
Nice answer. That shows how much you actually like her.
Well, I wouldn't really condone the word like, but it would be really nice to have her over here. She's kind of like my savior.
Well, that's Jorge for you, and that's all for today. Tune back in next week for the 14th episode of the Season 4 Pinland podcast.